Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be looking at which companies in my dividend portfolio are paying me the highest dollar amount that I currently am earning in my portfolio. Now, I recently did a portfolio update to show how the portfolio as a whole is doing. Since then, it's actually gone down just a little bit more. No worries, because we are in this for the long term. So even when we have a bad week like this right here, you can see we're actually down nearly $6,000. Quite crazy, seeing as the market's going down. Obviously, our dollar amounts are getting larger as we constantly are investing. So I was looking at which companies have been paying me out and my overall dividends earned, which I've shown in the past before too. I'm actually on the wrong tab here. So you can see right over here with my M1 Finance, so far for the year, we're actually earning about $1,435. June is still yet to be finalized. I'm just putting in like kind of the raw numbers as I am going through this. So once June is completely done, I'll go ahead and do a full update for that. So you can see right over here, actually, let me zoom in. Zoom. So right over here, you can actually see that we are only 7% away from earning as much as we did in all of 2023. So for us, what we're actually going to want to look at is see which companies are paying out this larger dollar amount. Now, what's really cool is I'm excited to constantly be showing you guys this dividend portfolio. One thing I do want to emphasize, if you are a little bit newer to the channel, this dividend portfolio, even though it is nicely named Dividend Dennis, I totally came up with that on my own. I'm not actually fully focused on the dividends today. I want to earn them later down the road. So I'm actually more focused on the companies that are going to be increasing their dividends at a healthy amount every single year, or ideally every couple of years. There are some companies that I'm holding that are not increasing their dividends, which not as big of a fan. So I want to make sure that I make different decisions if I am going to keep on holding them or if I'm going to switch to other companies. So let's take a look here. Now, I just switched over into my activities feed over here to just look at all of the companies that we have. So you can see the dates that they paid out, which company paid out, and then how much they paid out as well too. Now, if you're somebody that's newer to dividend investing and these dollar amounts seem a lot larger for you than what maybe you're earning, I just want to give you a quick little heads up. I'm going to move this back. I started here. The first dividend I actually earned in this portfolio was March 14th, 2019 from Microsoft for 2 cents. And then you can see these dollar amounts right here were just within the pennies for such a long time. It actually took me quite a bit of time to end up getting even to like the first full dollar that I actually earned in my portfolio. Let me actually go find that. When was the time I earned a full dollar? Like you can see here, I mean, we're just now getting to January 31st, 2020. So about a year later, and I earned my first $1.46 from a company I don't even hold anymore. But just as a reflection there for people who are just getting started, to let you know that it's totally okay that if you're getting started in a small dollar amount. Let me go back here. Perfect. Okay. So now looking at that, my dog is running around in the background. So if you hear any of that sound, that's just her. So have no worries. All right. So now let's go ahead and get back to our current time right over here. And I'm just going to go over some of the companies. Now we have 11 holdings in our portfolio. We do have some new companies that are now starting to pay out a dividend, like Google and Meta. So that's a really nice thing, and that's kind of what I was hoping for and aiming for, even though I was investing in companies that weren't paying out dividends. So you'll start seeing them showing up more and more. So you can see right over here with Apple, we're actually getting paid out $37.27 on our last dividend payout. You could see the biggest company right over here we're getting paid out is actually with Ally Financial. We're making a whopping $144.23, which is pretty mind-boggling to see that much money compared to what you saw earlier, which was just a couple of cents. Then we also have Costco. Obviously, it just paid us $18.12, but they also did have a special dividend that they paid out at the beginning of this year, which is a really nice thing. It's actually here towards the bottom of the screen. So that one paid out $233. So even though Costco has a much smaller dividend yield, because of that special dividend, it definitely helps a lot when it comes to actually earning those dividends in that company. And then our very first payout for Meta, which is right over here, it was back on March 26th. We actually earned a total of $31.34, which is obviously not a ton of money, but it's still extra money that is going to just be able to be reinvested into this portfolio. And one of the nice things is if Meta kind of goes the route of a lot of companies that start paying out dividends, usually within those first couple of years, you're going to be getting some really nice dividend increases, like 10, 15% increases. And that's kind of what we're going to be looking for over the years to see how they increase their dividends, because that's going to also help us without having to buy more shares. We're going to have more payout from these companies, which is a really beautiful thing. And then you can see right over here, we also got Home Depot, which is really close to how much we're making with Ally, with a much smaller dollar amount just because of the yields that we're getting with Ally. So this one is going to be $132 that we're making from Home Depot. Then you can see from Microsoft, we're making about $40.86, which you saw at the beginning, we were making about 2 cents as the first dividend from here. And then another really big company payout, which is going to be with Discover Financial Services, who is also getting bought out by Capital One. So we'll see if that ends up going all the way through, because that's going to change out having ownership in Capital One, and how much they're paying out I think is a little bit smaller. So right now you can see it's $132, and then we're right back there with another Costco dividend, which was $15.89, and then we're going right back through this whole process. But you can see we also had Texas Instrument, which I don't have anymore. Same thing with Ross. Both of those companies we sold out of completely and just reinvested back into the rest of the portfolio. I believe at the time when I sold those companies, I was putting quite a bit more into Google. And again, even though they were not paying a dividend, the goal was either eventually they would, or I would sell that company and utilize that money for something else that actually does pay out some dividends. So when we're looking here in the portfolio, with this account and everything else, when we go through and add it up, we've earned a total of $4,632 in total dividends. And you can see just in the last year and a half, right over here, from the $1,500 we made last year and the $1,400 that we've made so far in 2024, that is obviously a large percentage of the total dividends that we've earned. And ideally, what we're kind of looking for is really healthy growth year over year. So last year we made 63% more than the year prior. This year, we're at least looking at over 50% if everything kind of stays with it, which is ideal. The percentage of increase is going to go down over time, but the dollar amount is going to be obviously more and more. So for us, I'm really excited to see that process and how that's going to all play out for us as well too. I do want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments down below, which companies do you have that's paying you the largest dollar amount? Sometimes that's not always the company that's paying out the highest dividend yield, obviously. So just something to kind of keep in mind. For us, I'm really excited to see where these dividends grow, because I obviously have the intention of having these in about 11 or 12 years, I would say, to be able to kind of fund a lot of the things I have in my life. So that's why I'm not caring so much about the yield today, because I believe if I look at how this is set up, let me actually go over here. They changed this up a little bit, but if I actually go into my portfolio as a whole, you can see the current yield on here. So the current dividend yield on this portfolio with my 11 holdings is 0.823%. So it's not even 1% dividend yield. And just in case you're a little bit newer to dividends, or you're just kind of curious about this, as companies are increasing their dividend yields, some companies can do 10, 15%. That yield is going to go up even if I'm not buying any more shares, which is always great. When I go into my Seeking Alpha and I read the news, and that news is focused on the dividend increases, it's honestly a really beautiful thing. I think Home Depot recently did this. This is, by the way, Seeking Alpha. I do have a link for them in the show notes if you want to check them out. It's where I get pretty much all of my news as a whole. So let's see here. Where's that dividend increase news? So right here with Home Depot back in February of this year, it didn't go up double digits, but it did go up 7.7%. So if you consider with inflation, typically, not, with everything that's been going on recently, but typically inflation is about 2 to 3%. And so when companies are increasing their dividends 7%, 8%, 9, 10, 15%, heck, even 5% dividend increase, you're actually making more money without having to buy more shares of a company. So I'll just give a quick little example. I'll bring up my calculator here. So we were getting previously $2.09 per share. Let me go back to this. Now, in between that last dividend, I definitely had either bought more, I believe. So these numbers are not going to be accurate for the most recent, but I'm just showing you as an example. So let's just say I own 61 and a half shares, and then 609. at the time before that dividend increase, I was going to get $128.54. And then let's go ahead and do that again, but with the new dividend payout. So again, and let's just say I am not buying any other, let me bring up my calculator again. Bring those back up. And I don't buy any more shares. We're going to now make $2.25 per share. And so this is in 1 quarter a difference. So we're going to make $128 and now we're making $138. So pretty much about a $10 difference between the two. And that's per quarter. So that's $40 extra in a given year. Now that might not seem like a lot for most people, right? For not having to do anything more and just keeping the ownership of this company, I'm going to make that extra $40. But as time goes on and over the years, as these increases keep compounding, as well as me continuing to buy into these companies, that dollar amount is going to get larger and larger and have a bigger impact on the amount of income that is coming into my portfolio to either be reinvested or at that point, maybe even starting to be utilized for my expenses that I want to use these dividends for. Because like I said, I'm planning on using this in about 11, 12 years, not something that is for tomorrow. Because if my goal was to live off of these dividends today, for the value of this portfolio, I'm definitely not making enough to be making it sustainable. I would definitely be investing in companies that were paying much closer to 3 to 4% on average, which I have a few, like Ally is paying close to 4%, I believe. While also at the same time, I'm having Apple and Microsoft who have very low dividend yields, while at the same time they are increasing at a pretty healthy rate. So that's always going to be very helpful. So that's what I love to look for. Obviously, so most companies do their pay increases around the same time of the year. So I usually have a thing to look forward to certain times throughout the year where I'm looking forward to that news of that dividend getting increased. So it's always a really nice thing. I think one of the companies I have in my portfolio that hasn't, which is Ally, hasn't done a dividend increase in quite some time. Let me actually take a look here and see the last time they raised it. So the last time they raised it was January 30th, 2022. So it's been over 2 years at this point. So they are obviously not increasing their dividends annually, which is not always a great thing. But at the same time, depending on what they're trying to accomplish, it might make sense. But I believe their payout ratio is well under 60%, which is usually the thing you want to aim for, is to be under 60% on your payout. So they could be doing it, but they just chose not to. But if you look the times that they have, when you average it out over 5 years, it's about 13.4%, but that's going to definitely go down over the next couple of years, because if they don't increase anytime soon, we'll see that effect go through. And then let me take a look real quick with Microsoft and see here with their dividends. So you can see over here, so Microsoft pays, their payout ratio is well below, so that's a much safer way to see things. When it's closer to 60%, it's a little bit more risky. And you can see their 5-year growth rate has been 10%. So you're getting an average of 10% growth on your dividends over the last 5 years. They've been growing their dividend for 19 years. So, and even though it is, a whopping 75 cents, might not seem like a lot, but that thing will add up over time, and especially as you continue to buy into the company and hold them for long term. So that way you can actually go ahead and get those dividend increases impacting on your portfolio. Microsoft's latest dividend increase, which was back in September of 2023. So ideally they'll be doing another one this September. So this one right over here, you can see it went up 10.3%, which is again way above the inflation rate that we've been having, but also even in regular inflation times, this is such a massive increase in my overall earnings. So we go from 68 cents per share to all the way to 75 cents per share. So again, it's not a lot when it comes to, per share amount, while, owning the shares a long term, buying them over and over again, it's going to have that impact, because you saw we were earning 2 cents with Microsoft the very first time, and now we're actually earning a lot more on a regular basis with this. And so it's going to help us in the long term. Now, if you want to go ahead and check out Seeking Alpha, or even go ahead and download my dividend tracker, I give this out for free if you want to sign up for my emails. That will all be in the show notes down below for you. You can go ahead and check that stuff out. Help support out the channel so I can make more content just like this. Speaking of more content, I'll go ahead and put a video up here on screen for you so you can continue watching and learning when it comes to investing into your dividend portfolio.